Hello and welcome to the Columbia Daily Tribune's Courtside View basketball webcast. This is Tribune sports editor Joe Walljasper along with Tribune basketball beat writer Steve Walentick. Steve, on Saturday, Missouri makes the long-awaited trip to Arkansas to face Mike Anderson and the Razorbacks. This is a school that is sort of designated now as Missouri's out of division rival, and certainly is the most makes the most sense in basketball, at least, because you've got the coach who has left you behind and is at the other school.
Also geography.
And geographically, they are the close ones. Your thoughts, I mean, does this feel like a rivalry game coming up? I mean, do you think the blood is boiling in Missouri fans' hearts now that Mike Anderson's going to be on the other sideline?
I think maybe in some fans' hearts. I think there is a lot of vitriol towards Mike Anderson, and so that maybe has helped this look a little bit like a rival. But and you might even run into Arkansas fans who have some sort of dislike for Missouri that I'm unaware of. But I think you're going to have a hard time convincing players that this is not just another game, especially this Missouri team. I mean, this game might mean something extra for Lawrence Bowers and Phil Pressey, because they've known Mike Anderson for virtually their entire lives, and they obviously came here to play for him. And so from that standpoint, I think they might care, but nobody else on this roster has probably ever met Mike Anderson. And so I don't think you're going to have a really easy time convincing them that this is not just any other game, any other road game. Maybe from an Arkansas standpoint, this game means something to B.J. Young because he's a St. Louis kid. But otherwise, I don't think there's a whole lot of feelings one way or the other on either side.
Last year it would have been, because there was some hard feelings. At least I know Kim English was pretty outspoken about it. I don't know about some of those other guys, but I really don't think that Lawrence Bowers and Phil Pressey hold any sort of, I mean, they like Mike Anderson. So I think that's one difference. Like, if this game would have been held last year, it would have been a big deal.
Yeah, I think there's no question that there was animosity between Kim English and Mike Anderson, and they did not leave. There was not a friendship formed. Mike's last year at Missouri, and I think there were some grudges there, particularly from Kim's point of view. But I think if you talk to Lawrence or Phil, they like Mike. They've liked Mike since a lot longer than they were Missouri basketball players, or he was the Missouri basketball coach. So, and I think their relationship goes back so far that they had more of an understanding when he left to take the Arkansas job than fans did. I don't think they felt scorned the same way. I think they were disappointed for sure when he departed, but I think they had an easier time forgiving him for leaving than Missouri fans certainly have.
Do you think Missouri fans would be upset with Mike Anderson regardless if he left Missouri, or do you think it's just that he said 3 weeks before that he wanted to retire at Missouri and then left and then never was willing to kind of have a press conference or anything like that and explain, sorry, I shouldn't have said that? I mean, do you think it was because he left or the way that he left it?
I think, I'm sure there would have been some people who wouldn't have liked him because he left, but I think most people, it was the way he left for sure. I think, it was a move that made a lot of sense for Mike. He'd been there 17 years before in his life, and he had a lot of connections to the place. And I think, that was his dream job. And
I mean, even before the year started, everybody thought this is a very likely thing to happen. So it wasn't like anybody would have been caught.
It didn't catch anyone by surprise, and they paid him very well to take the job. And I think it was merely that he kind of strung Missouri fans along, and then, or that's how they felt, and then he bolts, and there's no looking back, no goodbye or anything. I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and I think it's unfortunate because it's changed the perception of what he accomplished in the 5 years he was at Missouri. And Lawrence Bowers said on Monday that he gives him credit for bringing in one of the greatest recruiting classes Missouri's had, and Lawrence is a part of that class. But it's true. I mean, right now that group has the record for the most wins by a class in school history, and obviously Marcus Denman was a consensus second-team All-American, and they were part of two of the winningest teams, single-season teams in school history, and Mike had a lot to do with getting those guys here, and certainly gets a ton of credit for the success that they all had as freshmen. And I don't think Missouri fans cede that to him anymore, and I think they still should, but it's the way it is. There's hard feelings there.
He walked into a disaster situation. I mean, it can't get any more disastrous than your guy who's hiring you is within that close to getting fired the day you're announced. I mean, that's as weird as it gets. And to get him to the Elite Eight within 3 years, it was, I mean, he did a good job as a coach, but people tend to remember the end, I suppose. The only other thing to close with is that I think that the thing that's going to kind of suck some of the air out of this thing is both teams are so good at home and so terrible on the road. I don't think we're going to see two good games, either there or in Columbia. Just the way these two teams play, I could see it being a 20-point game in both spots.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they've really been mirror images of each other. Missouri, I think, has shown a bit more fight on the road, but Arkansas really has been dominant at home. The only team to beat them at Bud Walton is Syracuse, and that was pretty early. And obviously, they really dominated Florida, who you're going to have an impossible time convincing me isn't the best team in the league, and they controlled that game from start to finish down there. And so I think it's going to be a really huge surprise if Missouri goes down there and wins, and not so much of a surprise if it's a lopsided score. So I think you're absolutely right. And same thing when they come back to Columbia.
Okay, well, join us next week when we discuss Missouri's first trip to Rupp Arena.